What's happening, everybody? It's Sean with Reactions to the Classics, and today we got a reaction to Queensrÿche, their album Operation Mindcrime, brought to us by our friend and patron of the channel, Robert. Thank you, Robert, for bringing this one to me. I didn't know anything about this. I was really interested in it once I did the research. Thanks to all the patrons out here who make this thing go. If you'd like to support us in any way, we greatly appreciate it. Check out the Patreon link below. The patron link on the end screen. We put up videos every single day, and that is a ton of man hours. All right, let's dive into this. Trey and I recently did a concept album video where we discussed different concept albums and mentioned famous ones. And this was one of them, and neither one of us had heard this. So I don't know if that's why Robert decided to do this. Thought, you know what, it'd be a good idea, or just happened to be coincidence. But I'm glad he did, because I'll be honest with you, the only Queensrÿche I know is the same that a lot of people know, Silent Lucidity. That's it. I didn't even know anything about this album. So a little background on Queensrÿche. They're an American heavy metal band formed in 1980 in Bellevue, Washington, out of the local band The Mob. They released 15 studio albums, 1 EP, and several DVDs. They continue to tour and record. That's a whole nother rabbit hole. I studied it all out. I'm not going to bore you with it, but Jeff Tate split from the band. They were actually recording and touring two different factions under the same name, which was insane that even happened. But not the original lineup now, but the original lineup consisted on this album of Michael Wilton, Chris DeGarmo. This is his last album before returning briefly in 2003. Drummer Scott Rockenfield, bassist Eddie Jackson, and lead vocalist, of course, Jeff Tate. They've sold over 20 million albums worldwide, including over 6 million in the US. They're considered one of the leaders of the progressive metal scene of the mid to late 80s. Now let's jump into this album. It's their third studio album, released in May of 1988. It's a concept album and a rock opera. Its story follows Nicky, a drug addict who becomes disillusioned in the corrupt society of his time and reluctantly becomes involved with the revolutionary group as an assassin of political leaders. It was their breakthrough album, reaching 50 on the Billboard 200, while its singles Eyes of a Stranger and I Don't Believe in You served as the band's first charting singles in the US. It did go platinum. A sequel, Operation Mindcrime 2, was released in April of 2006. This album also went to 38 in the UK. The idea for the album came to Jeff Tate after moving to Canada and listening to the loose talk of members of the militant Quebec separatist movement who had grown friendly with him, some of whom were in organizations which engaged in bombing and terrorism. He also incorporated some of his memories of friends who had become derelicts due to heavy drug use. While working on the basic storyline behind the album, Tate had to convince the rest of his bandmates on a one-on-one basis. Chris DeGarmo soon shared his enthusiasm for the project, and the rest of the band eventually became interested. Now, I've got a little summary for the album. I did a ton of research on this, and I didn't know whether to unfold this as we listen to it, and I'm going to do both. I'm going to read you the overarching story so you kind of understand what we're going into, and then I'll unfold it song by song, because whenever you handle a concept album, you got to do it with respect and care, right? But I think it'd be better if you've understood the overarching story going in. Sometimes it's too difficult to grasp in a song-by-song quick basis. So the album begins with the protagonist, Nicky, in a hospital. He lies in a near catatonic state, unable to remember anything but snippets from his past. Suddenly, Nicky's memories come flooding back in a torrent, which I'll get to what those songs are. He remembers how, as a heroin addict and would-be political radical, frustrated with contemporary society due to the economic inequality, corruption, and hypocrisy around him, he is manipulated into joining a supposed secret organization dedicated to revolution. At the head of this organization is a mysterious political and religious demagogue known as Dr. X, who manipulates Nicky through a combination of his heroin addiction and brainwashing techniques to become an assassin. Whenever Doc X uses the word Mindcrime, album title here, Nicky becomes his docile puppet, a state which Dr. X uses to command Nicky to undertake any murder that the doctor wishes. As his position within Dr. X's organization grows, so does Nicky's ego and adherence to his master's vision of the future. Through one of Dr. X's associates, a corrupt priest named Father William, Nicky is offered the services of a teenage prostitute turned nun named Sister Mary. Through his friendship and growing affection towards Sister Mary, Nicky begins to question the nature of what he's doing, seeing that Dr. X has his own nefarious agenda. Dr. X takes notice and, seeing a potential threat in Mary to his cult of personality, orders Nicky to kill both her and the priest. Nicky goes to Mary's church and kills the priest, but after confronting Mary, he fails to comply with the command to murder her. He loves Mary and decides to leave the organization with her. So Nicky goes to Dr. X to tell him they are out. Dr. X, however, reminds Nicky that the alternative is to go back to his bleak life of a self-loathing but helpless addict. Nicky leaves conflicted and uncertain, and he returns to Mary, only to find her dead. Nicky cannot cope with the loss, as well as the possibility that he himself may have killed her without knowing it, and he begins to succumb to insanity. He runs through the streets calling her name. The police arrive and attempt to subdue him. A gun is found on Nicky, and they take him into custody under suspicion of Mary's murder and the murders he committed for Dr. X. Suffering from an almost complete loss of memory, Nicky is put into a mental hospital where he retraces in his mind his last moments with Mary. Back in the present, in the hospital room at the beginning of the story, Nicky has regained his memory, but now stares at his image in a mirror, unable to recognize who he is and what he has become. Look, I know that's a lot of stuff, and it might be spoiler alert, but you're really not going to remember all of that as we unfold it. So I'll unfold it as we go song by song, but I just thought this was the best way to handle it. The album received widespread critical acclaim upon its release. Contemporary critics praised the band's musicianship, Jeff's voice, the complex and well-developed storyline, and Peter Collins' production. Loudwire ranked it as the best heavy album of the year of 1988. Rolling Stone placed it 67th on the list of the 100 greatest metal albums of all time. So if you've never joined me before, the music will not be in the video because the video would get blocked, but the Vimeo link is below. You can follow along with me. I definitely suggest you do that. All right, we're going to jump into the leadoff track, I Remember Now, written by DeGarmo Tate and Michael Wilton. I'm not going to tell you anything about the songs on the upfront. I'm going to unpack it on the back end. So pay close attention. I think this is going to be absolutely fantastic after doing a ton more research than I read you. Thanks again, Robert. Okay, so obviously we've started out in the hospital. You can hear the nurse, and he's apparently unresponsive, Nicky is, but then he wakes up. But you can hear the news report in the background setting the story of the murders, and so it's really a clever way to start this thing out. So he woke up and he remembered all of a sudden things that had happened. Quote, I remember now for this. So now we're going to go to the next two songs, because Anarchy X is an instrumental, and then Revolution Calling is going to build on that. So we're going to rock these two, and then we'll talk about it. Let's go. All right, Anarchy X, then flowing right into Revolution Calling. Anarchy X just has Anthony Valentine just saying a little bit, he's Dr. X, right? Do we have freedom? Do we have equality? This country's changing. It's no longer for all of the people. It's for some of the people. So he's getting people going, right? He's like, wait a minute, look around. This is really just for the rich and powerful. And I mean, I'm filming this in 2022, and this album was recorded in 1988. It was there's nothing that's changed, right? Especially with the political climate of this country in the last 6 years. This has become even almost a greater thing. So then we get into Revolution Calling, the song, and I mean, I'm gonna tell you right now, the musicianship on this thing, Jeff sounds great, but the guitar work by Chris DeGarmo and Michael Wilton are just fantastic. Nice bass work by Eddie Jackson too, but the guitar work is fantastic, just fantastic. Scott Rockenfield on the drums, nice as well. But now we get into the story. He says, for a price, I'd do about anything except pull the trigger. For that, I need a pretty good cause. Then I heard of Dr. X, the man with the cure. Just watch the television, you'll see something's going on. Got no love for politicians, that crazy scene in D.C. It's just a power-mad town, but the time is ripe for changes. There's a growing feeling that taking a chance on a new kind of vision is due. So the anarchy is starting to set in. Dr. X is bringing it there. And then he tells me, I used to trust the media, but now he doesn't anymore. And then, of course, Revolution Calling you. There's Revolution Calling, got to make a change, got to push it on through. Then verse 2, he's talking about all the stuff he sees on TV and how it's all BS, the communist plan, the shady preachers begging for his cash, the Playboy magazine, $1 million stories to tell. I guess Warhol wasn't wrong. Andy Warhol had fame 15 minutes long. Everybody's using everybody making the sale. I used to think that only America's way was right, but now the holy dollar rules everybody's life. Got to make $1 million. Doesn't matter who dies. So he's calling out war and calling out just the greed in this country at the time. And boy, that has not changed any. So his story is progressing, right? We're getting where Nicky is going. So now we'll go to the title track, Operation Mindcrime. Got to stop these things right at the end because it seamlessly transitions from one song to the next. I just can't do that to you because I'd have to run down like 100 different things. This one was my favorite song as far as this song, but it's hard to pick favorite songs on true concepts albums, and this is definitely a true concept album. So the phone rings at the start of this, and it's Dr. X, and Nicky answers hello, and then we just hear Mindcrime, to like that brainwashing, right? So he's kicked him in to that brainwashing where he's going to use the word Mindcrime and the heroin. You know, verse 1, he talks about it takes a minute and you'll feel no pain. Got to make something of your life. Boy, give me one more vein You've come to see the doctor because I'll show you the cure. I'm going to take away the questions, yeah, I'm going to make you sure. And then verse 2, a hitman for the order when you couldn't go to school. This talks about all that. Had a habit doing mainline. Watch the dragon bird. No regrets. You've got no goals, nothing more to learn. Now, I know you won't refuse because we've got so much to do and you've got nothing more to lose. So take this number and welcome to, and we get that Operation Mindcrime. We're an underground revolution working overtime. There's a job for you in the system, boy, with nothing to sign. And we have that fantastic guitar. So it starts out right away, just rocking in with that guitar right after Dr. X calls to let you know that, man, this is almost going to get a little sinister. And then verse 3, hey, Nikki, you know everything that there is to do. Here's a gun. Take it home. Wait by the phone. We'll send someone over to bring you what you need. You're a one-man death machine. Make this city bleed. And he gets back into the chorus and the pre-chorus and the outro. Hey, listen to me, Nikki is saying. So, man, we are really advancing this story. But super enjoyed that one. The last song, was one of the singles on here, Revolution Calling. But I thought this song was even better. All right, now we're going to go to Speak. All right, Speak. Now we're advancing the story, right? Now Nicky's starting to believe his own hype, so to speak. They give me a mission. I really don't know the game yet. I'm bent on submission. Religion is to blame. I'm the new Messiah, death angel with a gun. Dangerous is my silence, deadly to my cause. Speak to me the pain you feel. Speak the word, revolution. The word is all of us. I've given my life to become what I am, to preach the new beginning, to make you understand, to reach some point of order, utopian mind. You've got to learn to sacrifice to leave what's behind. And then he just goes on and talks about how the rich control the government, the media, and the law to make some kind of difference that everyone must know. Eradicate the fascist revolution will grow. And then just saying how the system says we're all equal, but the poor are really held down. We'll tear down their crown, educate the masses. We'll burn the White House down. So really strong talk here. I don't know if he's making a political statement, if Queensrÿche is. I mean, at this time, Reagan would have been ending his 8 years in the White House, and George H.W. Bush, the first Bush, would be taking his 4 years in. So I don't know if they're speaking to the country at the time, or this is just something they wanted to put together. But it makes you wonder with some of the speak in this. But I mean, the overarching theme here is that Nicky is really believing his hype, and he is getting more and more out of touch with reality and believing that he is almost a god of destruction. Now we're to spreading the disease. Spreading the disease. I got to tell you, Scott Rockenfield's drumming on this throughout, especially at the start and at the end, but I mean, throughout this thing was absolutely fantastic. And I mean, what a great last name for a drummer, right? Rockenfield. The guitar work throughout this thing by Michael and Chris are just fantastic. Jeff sounds great. I just feel like I haven't maybe said enough about the musicianship and the guys themselves, because you're unfolding the story, which is just fascinating, man. It's so well written that I don't want to forget that. I mean, these guys are just getting after it. Just powerful lyrics, and they're spreading the disease is just fantastic. So it starts out here, and now we find out, about Mary, the prostitute turned nun, although she still has to do really bad things. So he starts out, she always brings me what I need. Without it, I beg and sweat and bleed, bringing him the heroin. When we're alone at night, waiting for the call, she feeds my skin. So he kind of tells us she was 16 and on the run from home and working as a prostitute, spreading the disease everybody needs, but no one wants to see. Father William saved her from the streets. She drank the lifeblood from the Savior's feet. She's Sister Mary now, eyes as cold as ice. He takes her once a week on the altar like a sacrifice. You realize this guy's just as corrupt as everybody else. Then you get this spoken thing in here, right? No instrumentation except for the drumming in there. Religion and sex are power plays. Manipulate the people for the money they pay. Selling skin, selling God. The numbers look the same on their credit cards. Politicians say no to drugs while we paid for wars in South America. Talking about the Iran-Contra thing of that time. So, I mean, I'm a Christian. I'm a strong Christian. If you watch this channel, I mean, you probably know that. But he's 100% right on here. Selling skin, selling God. The great majority of, especially televangelists on TV, but even churches that I have come across, not all of them, but the great majority that I've come across are not of God, or not of God's church that he talks about in the Bible. They're trying to make money. It's power plays for men, right? He says, fight and fire with empty words while the banks get fat and the poor stay poor and the rich get rich and the cops get paid to look away as the 1% rules the America, spreading that disease, right? It is getting worse and worse. So, wow, man. What a song, and what a way to advance the story. Next up, we got The Mission. Once again, masterclass in musicianship, right? drumming, guitar work, a little bit of bass work in there. Jeff sounds great. This really starts to unfold the story. Nicky's starting to question his mission, right? It starts off with the television evangelist, right? And the preacher says, I'm asking for hands to be uplifted for just a moment. God, the Holy Ghost is calling out to embrace you. You hear the pistol being loaded, right? I want you to reach deep into your hearts and your pocketbooks and take his hand. Some of you are in a state of rebellion right now. And then Nicky says, bless me, Father, for I have sinned. Preacher, you're saying that. And then gunshots, right? And you hear the television shatter. He doesn't want to hear it anymore. And so then he's talking about where he's at. He's sitting there and there's this lonely candle. And then later on, there's a ton of candles that he's lighting. And Chris DeGarmo said later on that those candles, each one of them represented a victim that Nicky had killed. 6 days ago, my wife had taken a tumble. The orders came from high above. They said, I need to use me once again. They've got my number. Further the Cosboy, yes, you know the game. And then the chorus, I'll wait here for days longer till sister comes to wash away my sins. She is a lady that can ease my sorrow. She brings the only friend that helps me find my way. So he's really bonded to Mary now, right? And she's bringing him the heroin, but that's bonded him to her as well. She's like the only good thing in his life that brings him a positive. And then he's searching back in his life from when he was younger. So it's just, of course, too, the way it ends out, they'll say, my mission saved the world and I stood proud. My mission changed the world, the underground will all stand proud. So the brainwashing is continuing as he tries to fight to get away from it. Now the story, I do believe, is really going to ramp up. We got Sweet, S-U-I-T-E. Sister Mary is 10 minutes, 39 seconds long. It's really going to advance this story. Let's get it. Sweet Sister Mary, what a freaking song, right? Wow. And we're just going to break it all down. Like at the start, Dr. X comes and says, kill Mary. She's a risk, and get the priest as well. You have this Latin chanting, to kind of get the religious aspect into the Catholicism, I'm guessing, since they call this guy Father. And so kind of get that in there. And then, one thing that Jeff does on this album is he sings in different cadences, different voices. He understands how to speak sometimes. 10 p.m., I feel the rain coming down. So he's setting the stage. He's looking on the street. So it's pouring rain. It's 10 o'clock at night. And then Mary comes in here too. Midnight she praises in the hall. The saintly faces, hallowed be their name, she can't recall. Sister Mary, Virgin Mary, silent with her sin. Then she says, what are you doing out in the rain? She feels me. I can taste her breath when she speaks. I've been waiting for you. Come on in. And then Jeff's just saying, basically, you haven't fooled anybody. Now they sent me for you. You know too much for your own good. Don't offer me faith. I've got all I need here. My faith is growing tight against the seam. What we need is trust to keep us both alive. Help us make it through the night. And then Mary actually comes in here and sings a little bit. I've no more faith, no more want of any faith. Binds my arms and feeds my mind. The only peace I've ever known. I'll close my eyes and you shoot. So he's like, go ahead. She's like, go ahead and kill me. So they both are just saying, look, I don't have any faith in a higher power. All I got is this. And then he tells her, no. The priest is cold and dead, and on his knees he fell. From my barrel of death, he turned out the holy water red. And as he died, he said, thank you. I just watched him bleed. So now Nicky's like, I'm freeing these people, right, by killing them. But then he's telling her, look, I'm not going to do this to you. I see myself in you, paralyzed, winding at light speed through time. Neither one of them can find solace or comfort in anything, just Nicky's heroin. And then he said, no time to rest. We've got to stop his game before madness has the final laugh. Too much bloodshed. We're being used and fed like rats in experiments. No final outcome here, only pain and fear. It's followed us both all our lives. There's one thing left to see. Will it be him or me? There's one candle left to light. So he's getting back to that candle, right? So he knows. And he knows it's about to be on. So what a great way to set up the story. This was the last song on side one. Although it said on some versions of vinyl and on the cassette, this was the first song on side two, just because of the length and the way it felt. But now let's jump on to the second half of this story. Well, next up, you see it, The Needle Lies. The Needle Lies. So in the beginning, Nicky goes and tells Dr. X that he's out. I've had enough. I want out. And then you can't walk away, Dr. X says, and has this menacing laugh. And then the instrumentation begins and just kicking in, man. And once again, guitar, drumming, bass work, like all of it is just fantastic. And then Jeff sings, I looked back once and all I saw was his face smiling, the needle crying, walking out of his room with mirrors, afraid. I heard him scream, you'll never get away. And then cold and shaking, I crawled down alleys to try and scrape away the tracks that marked me, all the heroin, right? Slammed my face into walls of concrete. I stared amazed at the words written on the wall. And then the chorus, don't ever trust the needles, it lies. Don't ever trust the needle when it cries your name. And so he just keeps talking about how he can't get away from it, but he's got to get away from it. So he understands that to get away from Dr. X, he's got to kick the heroin and the high that it gives him. Now we'll go to a really short track, Electric Requiem. So we went from Electric Requiem, if you're following along, if you're just watching on YouTube, I just let the two songs play into each other because on Electric Requiem, it's only a minute and a half. He opens it up, is anybody home, Mary? And then he sees her and she's dead, right? He says, even in death, you still look sad. Don't leave me here. I want what you feel, believe me. Turn the current on. And then we get into breaking the silence. So he's on the run. Tension blowing. Now I lost everything I had in you. Nothing we shared means a thing without you close to me. I can't live without you. And then breaking the silence of the night. Can't you hear me screaming? I look for your face in the neon light. You never answer me. So that's just what he keeps on going through on this. And can't look back. It's just a waste of time. Can't erase this hate from my eyes. Breaking the silence of my cries. Can't hear you screaming. We could make all this wrong seem right, but you never answer me. Never answer me. Never answer me. And then you hear the voices. We know you did it. Why did you do it? And Nikki starts screaming, no, no, no. Now, we're going to have an answer by the end of this album, whether it's through the songs or whether it's some added info I have to tell you whether Nikki did this or not, because he's not even sure, right? Was he brainwashed? Was he high? Did he do this? Did he not remember it? But I thought that the music, the arrangement, the instrumentation, the ramped up guitars really does a good job of setting the scene in this thing, right? Of the manicness and the stress and the pressure and how this thing is really ramping up in Nikki's mind. So I thought they do a very good job of that, not only in this song, but throughout the album. Now we go to I Don't Believe in You. I Don't Believe in Love. I mean, just outside of advancing the story, this is just an awesome song, right? The song is great. It was a single. It was nominated for Grammy for Best Metal Performance, losing to 1 by Metallica. It still only went to 41 on the U.S. Billboard mainstream rock charts. Not on the main charts, but it starts out, he gets arrested, right? And so he's arrested for the murder, but what he's really just laboring on here, she said she loved me, I guess I never knew, but do we ever really know? The people who tell us that they love us, love us. She said she'd meet me on the other side, but I knew right then I'd never find her. And then that chorus, I don't believe in love, I never have, I never will, I don't believe in love, it's never worth the pain that you felt. And he tells about having nightmares from the day he was born. They've haunted his every move. Every open hand's there to push and shove. No time for love. It doesn't matter. She made a difference. I guess she had a way of making every night seem bright as day. Now I walk in the shadows, never see the light. She must have lied because she never said goodbye. And then you just get into all of that. He just feels helpless because he's never going to see her again. I will tell you right now, the guitar work by Michael and Chris were just absolutely unreal. And Scott's drumming, I mean, just vocals, Eddie on the bass. I don't mention them all, but like, the instrumentation on this one really set it off. Now I'm going to play the next two tracks together. We got Waiting for 22, which is an instrumental, and that's going to go right into My Empty Room, which is also a short track. Waiting for 22 was just an instrumental, right? I think it was a little cleansing because I Don't Believe in Love, the previous track, he'd been arrested, he's sitting in jail. It takes us into My Empty Room, which now he's in the insane asylum, and the clock is ticking when it starts, just to let you know kind of what's such an isolation. It says empty room, and I sit here today. I remember a chalk outline upon the wall. I remember tracing 1,000 times. Oh, the night she died. Why? There's no sleep today. I can't pretend. When all my dreams are crimes, I can't stand facing them. And then the clock ceases. Get that nice instrumentation. Now, who will come to wash away my sins, clean my room, fix my meals, be my friend? And then he screams friend because he misses Mary greatly, and he's going down the abyss of insanity. All right, here we go. We're going to culminate this thing. The final track is almost 7 minutes long. Eyes of a Stranger. It was their first single to chart on the U.S. mainstream rock chart. It reached number 35, 59 in the UK. Let's see how this thing ends for Nikki. Wow, Eyes of a Stranger. What a freaking song, right? So well done. Everybody's firing on all cylinders in the band, and Jeff sounds fantastic, but the story, wow, just brings it full circle, right? Eyes of a Stranger, so well done. Starts out, you hear these doctors being called over the intercom, and then Nikki starts screaming and complaining to a nurse. And he says, all alone now, except for the memories of what we had and what we knew. So he's still thinking of Mary, right? and he just can't get away from it. Every time I try to leave it behind, I see something that reminds me of you. Every night the dreams return to haunt me. Your rosary wrapped around your throat. I lie awake and sweat, afraid to fall asleep. I see your face looking back at me, looking back at me. And then that gets to that chorus, and I raise my head and stare into the eyes of a stranger. So he's looking in that mirror. I've always known that the mirror never lies. People always turn away from the eyes of a stranger, afraid to know what lies behind the stare. So he's still wondering, did I kill her? Right? And that's all. Is that all that's left of my life before me? Straitjacket, memories, sedative highs, no happy ending like they've always promised. There's got to be something left for me. And then he raises his head and looks in the eye of the stranger. Great guitar solo. How many times must I live this tragedy? How many more lies will they tell me? All I want is the same as everyone. Why am I here and for so long? Then the chorus. Then you get this instrumental medley that's kind of playing. It's real quick. Operation Mindcrime, Speak, and Revolution Calling. Then you hear Revolution. Then it gets real quiet. It's real eerie instrumentation. Then all of a sudden he says, I remember now. So he remembers what happened. And that takes us to the first song was I Remember Now. And that lets us know the first song was actually last. Right? It should have come after this. So it's a full circle album. So freaking well done. Now the question you wonder after this is all over is, did Nicky kill her? But he didn't. Because it was revealed on the Mindcrime at the More DVD that Mary killed herself after Dr. X threatened to kill Nicky. So they let you know this. It's just that they let you know in another avenue. So if you were listening to this, you were always wondering, and that was part of the beauty of it, I'm sure, is who did it. So what a fantastic album. What a great way to end it. I'll give you my faves. And there's a lot of them. It's really weird on a concept album. Sometimes you hardly have any faves. Like on The Wall, I hardly had any faves. And that was a massive, 27 tracks, I think, on The Wall, if memory serves me right. This one, though, the music stands out, too, because everybody's firing on all cylinders. Jeff Tate is a fantastic vocalist, powerful, yet his voice is really, really nice, right, when he wants to have it controlled. Michael Wilton and Chris DeGarmo on the guitars are absolutely top-notch. Eddie Jackson, when he gets his chance to shine on bass, he doesn't want to go to waste. And then Scott Rockenfield on the drums, like I said, what a great name, is just fantastic. So honorable mentions are going to be Revolution Calling, Breaking the Silence, and my faves, Operation Mindcrime, Spreading the Disease, Sweet Sister Mary, 10 minutes, 39 seconds of epic greatness. I Don't Believe in Love, and then this last song, Eyes of a Stranger. So, so well done. Now we're going to get to my overall grade on the album. You know, I think it would have been interesting to listen to this in 1988 if you were just jamming it. You probably didn't even realize it was a concept album unless you were listening real closely and looking at the lyrics. It's just so well done. I mean, this is really, really well done. When you're going to take on a concept album, it's so difficult, right? Because it can turn cheesy and cliched and forced, right? So quickly. It can do all those things so quickly, and then you're like, this didn't work, and you kind of almost get mocked for it. So it takes a lot of guts to do this. I thought it was fantastically done. I'm going to be at a sky-high 8.5 on first listen. This one is a fun one. You got to put some time into it. You got to put some concentration into it, and you got to listen to the whole thing in one setting. There's a couple songs you can pull out, just jam if you want. But thank you, Robert, for bringing this to me. I didn't even know this thing existed till Trey mentioned it in the concept albums, and I didn't think anything else of it. So glad you brought it to us. Let me know what you guys think of this album. Where does it rank on the greatest concept albums of all time? What else should I check out from Queensrÿche? All right, thanks everybody for watching. I'll see you next time.